Hello guys, and welcome back to Mossy Maths GCSE. Today we're going to be going through a new topic called trigonometry, and we're looking at the first lesson, which is on something called SOHCAHTOA. And SOHCAHTOA is a rule that we apply to right-angled triangles only. And we do this to find either a missing side in these three examples or a missing angle with these three examples. On the left-hand side of the board are the key points we need to learn, so I'm going to go through this first and then we'll attempt some exam-style questions on this topic. Now, trigonometry is going to include a total of 5 lessons. This one, as I've said, is on SOHCAHTOA. The next one is on 3D SOHCAHTOA. Then we'll look at graphs of trigonometric functions. The 4th lesson we'll look at the sine and cosine rules. And the 5th lesson, how to find the area of a triangle that does not have a right angle. So that's any triangle. And the key points for this lesson are these formulas here. Sine x is opposite divided by the hypotenuse. Cos of x, which is cosine, is adjacent divided by hypotenuse, and tangent of x, tan x, is opposite divided by adjacent. Now, what does this mean? Well, if you have a scientific calculator with you, you should be able to see a button on there which says sine, cosine and tangent. 3 buttons there, SIN, COS and TAN. And what these do is they calculate the angle or the missing side of a triangle when we apply it in the right way. And these are the formulas for doing that. And the way we remember them is using this rule of SOHCAHTOA. SOH, well, this stands for sine is equal to the opposite side divided by the hypotenuse. Cosine is equal to the adjacent divided by hypotenuse, that's the CA. And the TOA is the tan rule, is opposite divided by adjacent here. So that's just a way of remembering the rules. Now, to make sure you understand what I mean by the opposite, adjacent and hypotenuse, just have a look at these 3 examples. Now, the hypotenuse, if you've watched my previous lesson on Pythagoras' theorem, just means the longest side. So this, in question 1, would be the hypotenuse, because it's the diagonal, the longest side. Now, if we look from the perspective of x, and what I mean by that is if we imagine that we are x, then the opposite side to this angle x is going to be this side, because that's opposite to the angle. So that's the opposite, and adjacent is just another word for next to. So this would therefore be the adjacent side. With example 2, once again, the hypotenuse is the longest side. Now the angle's here, because that's the one we're trying to find, x. So the opposite side to that is here, and the adjacent will be the one next to it, this one here. And finally, can you do this one yourself? Pause the video and have a go. Hopefully you know now this is the hypotenuse. This will be the adjacent, because our x is here, and opposite x is this side here. Now, just one last thing to add. This table here goes through some common values of the sine, cosine and tangent of certain angles, and these are ones that I would learn. Now, there are ways that we can draw out an equilateral triangle and work out these sides, but I would advise that these are ones we should be learning for our exam. So it's often easier just to remember these values rather than have to draw out triangles and work them out. It just saves a lot of time in an exam situation. So if we take 0 degrees, sine 0 is 0, cosine, cos of 0 is 1, and tan of 0 is 0. And so on and so on. Sine 30 is a half, cos 30 is root 3 over 2, tan 30 is 1 divided by root 3. Now we'll be going through examples to show what I mean by this when we apply it in a real example with a formula. But like I say, just learn these values and that will help you out a massive amount in an exam. So to start with, we're going to find some missing sides. The first example says find AC, and we have a right angled triangle here. AC is this length. So we're trying to find this here. So what we need to know is what sides we have before we can think about which rule we have to apply. Well, we have the longest side of the triangle, which is called the hypotenuse. So we know that we're not going to be applying tan, because that doesn't involve using the hypotenuse. We're trying to find this side here, which, as we can see, we're given an angle of 32 degrees, and this is opposite to that angle. So we have the opposite side we're trying to find, and we have the longest side, which is the hypotenuse. So opposite and hypotenuse, as we can see, is sine. Sine is opposite divided by hypotenuse. So the opposite is this side, which we're trying to find, and the way we do it is sine of x, where x is the angle. So we can say sine of 32 is equal to the opposite, which is AC, that's what we're trying to find, divided by the hypotenuse, which is length 8. Well, here we want to find AC, so we need to rearrange this equation. If we're doing AC divided by 8, then we multiply both sides by 8 to get AC. So 8 sine 32 is AC. So all we do is we get our scientific calculator and we type in 8 sine, that's the SIN button, and then 32. And make sure our calculator is in degrees. And we get AC to be 4.239, which is 4.24 if we do it to 3 significant figures. That's just the same thing as 2 decimal places. Okay? And in the exam they will tell us how many significant figures they want us to do it to, but it's usually something like 3. Now the second example, find YZ. Well, YZ is this longest side here, which is the hypotenuse. So we're trying to find the hypotenuse here, and we're given, now again we need to think that if we are the angle, then the side we have is the side next to the angle, which is the adjacent side. So we have the adjacent, and we're trying to find the hypotenuse. So this is going to be the cos function. So we can say that cos of, and our x here is 25, equals our adjacent side, which is 5, divided by a hypotenuse, which is YZ. That's what we're trying to find. Now we need to rearrange this for YZ. So the way we do this is we simply divide the 5 by cos 25. Imagine if we move the YZ up here to multiply by cos 25, then we divide by cos 25. So we get YZ, when rearranging this formula, to be 5 divided by the cos of 25 degrees. So all we do, again, is type this into our calculator. 5 divided by cos 25. And here we get 5.52. 5.52 to 3 significant figures. And remember, again, these are in centimetres. I missed that out here, but that's another way we can easily lose a mark. So remember to add the unit, which is centimetres in this case. The final example, if you pause the video and just have a go at home, and then I'll go through the solution with you afterwards. Okay guys, hopefully you paused the video and had a go. Find TM. So we have the angle here, so we've got the adjacent side because this is the hypotenuse. So the adjacent will be this one, and we have the opposite that we're trying to find. Well, the opposite and adjacent is tan. So we're using the tangent function there. So we can say tan of our angle, tan x, which is 60 in this case, is equal to the opposite side, which we're trying to find, divided by our adjacent side, which is 13. And again, we rearrange this. 13 multiplied by tan 60 equals our length TM, which we're trying to find. So TM is just 13 multiplied by tan 60, which gives us 22.5 centimetres to 3 significant figures. Okay guys, so that covers the first part of the topic of SOHCAHTOA. Now we're moving on to finding missing angles. Question 4. Find SPR. Now SPR is this angle here labelled X. Now what we do is the same thing. We first have to identify which formula we're going to use. Well, we're given here 2 lengths that in relation to the angle are the opposite and the adjacent, because this is the longest side, so this will be the hypotenuse. Now that's the tan function again. So we can say in this case tan of x equals 5 divided by 7. Okay, opposite divided by adjacent, TOA. Well, the way we work this out is we now have to use something called the inverse trig function, the inverse tan in this case, which is tan to the minus 1 of 5 divided by 7. And that will simply give us our angle x. And I'm going to do this to 3 significant figures. So now if we get our calculator and find the button which says tan to the minus 1. On mine you have to press shift and then tan. And then we do that of 5 divided by 7. So make sure the 5 divided by 7 is in brackets after the tan to the minus 1. And we should get an angle of 35.5 to 3 significant figures degrees. Now question 5. Now the right angle is here, so it is a right angled triangle. It doesn't look like it when you look from this perspective, but we can see that the right angle is drawn for us, so we can apply SOHCAHTOA. We have the adjacent side. Now this, as we can see, is actually the hypotenuse. You might think, looking at it first, that this will be the diagonal, because it looks as though it will be, although clearly this is the longest side. So this is our hypotenuse, and we have, in relation to the angle, the adjacent. Well, adjacent to the hypotenuse is cos, so we apply the cos rule. Cosine of our angle x is equal to 4 divided by 6. So x is equal to cos to the minus 1, again using the inverse function to find our angle, of 4 divided by 6. So cos to the minus 1 of 4 divided by 6 is 48.2 to 3 significant figures degrees. Finally, have a go at this question at home, pause the video and I'll go through it with you afterwards. Okay guys, so this one, we have the opposite and the hypotenuse, which is sine. So sine of x equals 2.5 divided by 5, which is a half. So x is sine to the minus 1 of 2.5 divided by 5. So the inverse sine of 2.5 divided by 5 is 30. So x is 30 degrees. And remember, this is one actually we can learn. Sine 30 is a half. Okay? So, that covers the lesson on SOHCAHTOA. Thanks a lot for watching the video. Now, in this one, we kind of looked at both finding a missing side and a missing angle. So we have covered quite a lot in this lesson alone. Again, remember, this is something we need to learn. In the next lesson, we'll be moving on to more challenging parts of SOHCAHTOA with 3-dimensional examples. So if you found the video helpful, please do leave a like. If you have any questions, then comment below and I'll try and get back to you as quick as I can with a response. So thanks a lot and I'll see you in lesson 2 on trigonometry.